Hey adventurers, so today is going to be my wrap up for the month of May 2026. I finished 8 books this month. It was a slower reading month for me in a lot of ways. Some of the books that I read were either really short or I was just wrapping up the last couple of pages of them basically. And so, yeah, it really, I read like 5 books this month instead of actual decent amount, and my audio listening time was severely diminished because of the work that I'm doing at my job at the moment, where I can't focus so much, or I have to be focusing on the work a lot more than some of the other tasks that I have, and so I'm not able to focus on audiobooks as much. So anyways, let's get into this though and talk about the books that I read. The first one that I finished was Dreamer Awake by Liam Cutie Hall. This is my second read of it. It's a reread for me, and I actually picked this one up on audio because the audiobook for it just released. I absolutely recommend this book. This is fantastic. There's so much great stuff in here. It's very short. It's like 134 pages with well, actually, if you go to the About the Author, you get 137. So it's like 137 pages. This is not a very long book. It's not difficult to read in the sense that it is it's short, it's well paced. What difficulty there is comes in Hall's grasp of the English language and his ability to incorporate archaisms, words that aren't in common use anymore, and his just understanding of words and how to explain things and how to use the perfect word for the situation is incredible. That's part of what I love about this book so much and about Hall's writing. But I also just think that it's fantastic. The story that he's building, it pulls a lot from the Pygmalion myth, from, I believe that's Greek mythology, if I remember correctly, which is, that in and of itself is interesting, but also there's a lot of parallels to things like Frankenstein. It's almost like a reverse parallel to Frankenstein, and I really like that aspect as well. Anyways, this is just a fantastic book. I have a review of it. I'd recommend go watching my review. I definitely recommend picking this up. I've read it now. The first time I read it was an ebook. I had it received in eARC, and then the second time was on audio. But I also have the physical books here. So there's all 3 versions are available to read. Just go pick one up and read it. I think it's fantastic. Next, I listened to House of the Wolfings. This is another book that I did read it at the same time as Liam, the author of Dreamer Awake. This was one where we tend to read a lot of things around the same time, and we recommend stuff to each other frequently. And so he was wanting to pick this one up. It's by William Morris, and I haven't read any Morris previously, but I know that I need to. And so House of the Wolfings was one of those ones where I was like, okay, I think this is a good one for me to pick up at the moment because I've got other people reading it, can discuss it. I'm also ready to read something that's this classic fantasy type story at this point. And so that worked really well for me as well. It's very poetic. It's written in poetry and more than just prose, and it's beautiful. It's just absolutely stunning. I'm not going to review this book at the moment. I'm going to have to do a reread of it before I can review the book and give like an actual high quality, decent discussion of the book itself. Much like I did with Fantastes by George MacDonald, it's going to be something very similar where I wait until after I've reread it to actually review the book. And I do plan to reread it at some point. It won't be immediately, but it'll be hopefully not 5 years from now type thing. It'll hopefully be within a year or so. So yeah, House of the Wolfings was really good. I really enjoyed that as well. Next, I read The Odyssey by Homer. The translation that I read, this is not the translation that I read. I listened to an audiobook of it. This one is a Samuel Butler translation. And the translator that I found was, I've got to find who it was again. There's lots of different audiobooks because it's such a easily available book to find. The one that I found the translation by was Daniel Mendelsohn. I don't know a whole lot about the different translations. I don't know which one is the best translation or anything like that. I didn't really want to listen to the Emily Wilson, is what her name is, translation. I didn't want to read that one. I've heard mixed things about that and the quality of it, so I was trying to find a different one, but also one that had an audiobook that I appreciated reading. And so I found the Daniel Mendelsohn one, and I found it on Libby. I'm going to hold this up as a placeholder because it's the same book, same story. It's just a different translation. And I liked a lot about it. I thought there's some things that sounded, I believe that was a 2025 translation, but it's got some really good things about it. It's got some of the things that I noticed was that there was some pieces of it that felt very modern in the wording of it and kind of clunky because of that. But I was able to listen. I was able to comprehend the story very easily. I understood everything that was going on. The characters were easy to follow and to recognize. I had a good time with it, and it was really good for me to. At some point in my past, I've studied the story of the Odyssey, and the Iliad as well. I don't know where that was at, when that was that I studied that, if I've read abridged versions or whatever, but I know, like, I know the story of the Odyssey, I know the story of the Trojan War and all that stuff, and so it's all something that I'm aware of. I just don't know how I knew that. I can't remember where it was that I learned that somewhere in my past. And then of course I know a lot of pieces from just pop culture and from understanding storytelling and stuff like that. But it was really good to actually go and sit down and read the source material, the translated source material, and get the story, how it was intended, how it was built. And yeah, I think it was really good. I was able to actually see those myths come to light, come to life, I should say, and able to understand why they are done the way that they are, and how they're referenced, and why the references, what other things are referenced about this, but beyond just the Cyclops or Circe's Island or Calypso, or like those main adventures that he goes on. There's so much more to the story than just that, and so it was good for me to actually finally read this, and I enjoyed it a lot. Next, then I listened to Wake the Giant by Jeff Shara. This is a World War II novel. This is specifically about the attack on Pearl Harbor and the lead up to that attack, and what that basically how that could have happened, how that could be allowed to happen, if you want to say it that way. The information that was missed or ignored or thrown out because the United States just thought, oh, this isn't important, this isn't something to worry about, we're not gonna pay attention to this. There's a lot of that's in it. And as I was going through this book, I was like, this is so good, I'm loving this book, I'm loving this story. And then I get to the attack on Pearl Harbor, and it just makes you feel sick, and you're like, I don't want to be reading this anymore. I just want to put it down, and I don't want to be consuming this story. I'm done with it. But at the same time, I'm also thinking, I don't want to quit. I just want to keep reading. I just want to know what happens next. I want to know why the rest of this tale that's being woven here. And of course, it's based off of a true story, and it's following real people, fictionalized events to some degree, in the sense that there were some fictional characters, there were some fictional events, because we don't have every single detail written out for us where we can find it, but we have a lot of information. But it's basically Shara built a story from the actual events that happened, and so it is historical fiction, but it's so good. It was very, very good. I very much enjoyed the book, and I'm very glad that I read it. And I do love World War II history, so it was a good read for me as well on that front. The next one that I listened to was The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame. This is a story that I've heard about all my life, and one that I've needed to read for a very long time. I know a lot of people talk about it in the same conversation with Redwall and Green Ember even, and stuff like that. And so it's one that I know that it was going to be anthropomorphic, and I don't have any problem with that. I think that's kind of fun, and there's some cool stories that can be told here. I went into it and not really knowing what to expect, other than that it was going to be animal characters and going on an adventure, some sort of fantasy-esque almost. Beyond that, I didn't really know what to expect from it, though. I really had a good time with this one. I already enjoy anthropomorphic fantasy and storytelling. I think that's really fun. But also just the stories, it's like each chapter is basically a vignette, a story in and of itself, of an adventure that these characters are going on. And I like that episodic style. I like that feel. I think that it works really well. I think Graham has some beautiful passages of writing, especially usually at the close of each chapter. He has like a monologue essentially, or a closing paragraph that's just absolutely gorgeous, and it works really well. And so yeah, absolutely beautiful. Loved that book a lot. I feel after having read it, it reminded me more of like the Thornton W. Burgess books rather than Redwall, and that's not a problem for me. I do believe, if I remember correctly, Brian Jakes has cited The Wind in the Willows as inspiration for to some degree for the Redwall series, and so I'm not surprised that those things are in the same conversation. But it did, the feel of it reminded me of the Burgess books rather than the Jakes, and that's just an interesting connection that I made in my own mind. Next, I finished The Sunrise Dagger by Belle Montero. This is book 2 in the Memories of Kinjir series, and I've been reading this. I received an e-arc for it. I've been trying to get through it, and I just read too slowly to actually get through it before it was released, and so I finished it. My review should be up by the time you're seeing this, because I'm putting this up on Thursday, and the review goes up on Monday. So you'll definitely be seeing this video. Well, my review for The Sunrise Dagger will already be up by the time you're seeing this video. I really like this book. I really enjoyed book 1, the Crimson Fire. This book just takes on that and builds. And Montero is a great author and does a great job at building out that story and doing more than just continuing like making a book two. It's not just a book two. It really builds on the story and on the world and on the characters, and even Montero's skill as an author is developed in that second book. And so I really appreciate that. I really like all that. Yeah, watch my review. That's gonna give you a lot more thoughts than just this short recap of what I read video. And so yeah, definitely recommend going and watching my review for that and reading the book, because it's great. Then I had a little bit of time left at the end of the month where I had 1 or 2 work days left. One work day, I think I started this on Friday, and I didn't have enough time to start something big before the next month, or I didn't want to because of what's going on, one of the events that's going on next month, or I guess in June is what I should say. And so I didn't want to start something big that would carry me into that next month. So I was looking and I'm trying to figure something out, and I been thinking a lot about storytelling and acting and trying to improve that craft of acting, the craft of storytelling, especially screenwriting, and how to be a better screenwriter. And so I picked up Save the Cat, as has been recommended by many people all the time. And I read through this, or listened through it rather. It's a short audiobook, it's like 5 hours on audio or something like that. So it didn't take me very long to get through it. And it was the type of thing that I needed for the day, because I had enough time to listen to it, but it wasn't going to carry over into the next month. And so I have a lot of mixed opinions on this. It's not my favorite book ever. It's not the best thing. It doesn't work for me as well as as it seems to work for a lot of people. And I found this to be the case with when I read Save the Cat 2, or Save the Cat Goes to the Movies, or whatever the other one is, where it's the sequel to this book, and it's looking at a slightly different aspect of filmmaking and screenwriting. That book basically was absolutely worthless for me, and it didn't help me whatsoever. Well, so I was hoping that this book would be a little bit better for me, and it was a little bit better, a little bit more useful. I was able to get a little bit more out of it than I got out of the other one that I thought was the first book. Anyways, that's a whole mess of things. I didn't like the second book. I didn't particularly care for this first one either, this Save the Cat. This is by Blake Snyder, I should mention, is the author, and it's fine. There's nothing particularly grand about it. It just, I think there's something about the way that my brain works when looking at storytelling, that the way that these various authors and writers describe it doesn't work for me. It doesn't click with the way that I think and the way that I see story. And so, yes, I could find some good things in it. I could find some helpful information, helpful tips, stuff like that, but it's gonna take me studying it a whole lot before, like studying that specific book, trying to understand it, trying to reconcile it with the way that my own brain works, in order for me to get as much out of it as it seems other people do. Maybe that would be beneficial. Probably I should do that at some point. I'm not going to worry about it right now. I may reread it at some point. I may try and physically read it at some point. I may sit down and take the beats that it tells you and try and plug those into a story type thing at some point. But I'm glad I read it. It wasn't my favorite thing ever. I'm not sure that it was as useful to me as a lot of people seem to find it. That's about all I have to say about it. Finally, the last book that I finally finished in the month was The Return of the King by J.R.R. Tolkien. This is, of course, the third part of The Lord of the Rings. I have been reading this since March, and or April or something like that. It's taken me a long time to get through it. I haven't had the time to sit down and physically read as much as I needed to, and so it's taken me longer to get through it. Plus, I was also doing this as a immersion read with the audiobook at the same time as looking at the words. And so it was a good experience. I'm glad that I did it. I like the Rob Ingalls narration. I think that he's good. There's a lot of stuff that I liked about it. I love this book. I'm nothing about the book. This is kind of just more my experience of reading it this time, rather than anything about the book itself, because I've talked extensively about the book and will continue to do so in further videos. But for this time, the things that stood out to me, of course, going through here, there's so much that I really like about this book. I love the endings. I love the way that he wraps it up, and that he starts the slow closing of this story. That's not just, okay, we've completed the quest and now the book's over. There's a whole lot more that goes into it, and I really love that. I personally think that's one of the greatest parts of this book, and one of the greatest examples of how to do an ending ever. So yeah, I really like this book. But one of the things that I specifically noticed, and that's partly because it's probably recency bias, I just listened to it last night at the time of filming this, was the appendixes. And just listening to Appendix A, that's the only thing that they recorded. And Appendix A has some just absolutely beautiful writing in it. But what I'm impressed by the most is the quality of how just what Tolkien was doing in those sections and the way how beautiful it is. And I'm looking at just Appendix A and what the writers of well, basically anybody who has rights to adapt these stories has rights to the appendices, and that's about it. The Lord of the Rings, the Hobbit, the Lord of the Rings, and the appendices are all the things that the rights have been given out for, and so sold for, not given away. So looking at the appendices, I'm reading through here and looking at how well constructed everything is, and then I'm thinking about Rings of Power, and I'm just like, it's so, like, I see where they got their ideas. I see exactly how they came to the conclusions that they came to. It's just a misrepresentation and misinterpretation of what's actually in the book. And that frustrates me every time I go through and read the appendices, because I'm just like, the appendices are so good. There's so much in them. They're so rich and full of just so much story, so many different things. And then I think of like the Hunt for Gollum that's coming out, and that we don't know a whole lot about yet, but we kind of do, because we have the Hunt for Gollum, and we have that story basically told in the Lord of the Rings. And so I'm excited to see what they do with it, but I also think it's not going to be very good. But I don't know, and I'm not, this isn't a channel about adaptations or anything like that, although I do discuss them as I watch them. But yeah, anyways, Return of the King's fantastic, as it always is. And yeah, that's about all that I'm going to say about it. Anyways, those are all the books that I read or finished reading in the month of May. I am still physically reading Rada by Tracy M. Joyce. I'm actually making some good progress. I am now 170 pages into it, where I think last month I was like 60 or something like that. So I'm making some progress slowly but surely, and I'm trying to be very consistent about reading at least 5 pages a day. I know that's not very much, but I can usually fit that in. Yeah, but I'm making progress through that, and I'm happy to be doing that. I'm still enjoying a lot about it, and I'm still happy to be reading it. I don't know what all I'm picking up next, but I do know that the next book that's sitting on my floor waiting for me to read it is Beren and Luthien, and so I'm excited to continue reading Tolkien and get through some of that. So anyways, that's about all that I have to say. Thank you guys for watching an Erudite Adventure. We post videos every Monday and Thursday, and have our social medias linked in the description down below. We will see you guys again soon. Stay warm.